Hello everyone, uh, I'm Utkarsh Upendra and today I'm going to be starting a series of videos essentially around how do we easily create REST APIs using Spring Boot. So APIs, for those who don't know, it's a means of exchange of data between multiple services. So if I have service 1 which wants to have some data exposed to service 2 so that service 2 can function, then the data APIs are a way of exporting that data across services. And the API, the type of APIs that we are going to be building today are the REST, which are essentially the APIs exposed over the HTTP. And we'll talk more about that down the line. So the process essentially starts with something called Spring Initializr, which you can see on the screen. Here we select the project type. I have set it to Maven. The language is Java. The Spring Boot version is something that you can select. And then we have to specify a bunch of metadata. And for in this case, I've set it to com.latest which is the group. And then the artifact and name have some demo dummy names. You can give a description, and the package name gets auto-generated based on the group and artifact. The packaging is specified into jar since that is what we are going to be essentially working with, and version of Java is up to you to select. The next thing is quite important because this is where we specify the dependencies that we need in order to develop our service. In this case, since we are essentially building a REST API, we just need the Spring Web Service, which provides us with the classes that or the ability to basically create routes and map those to the URLs over the internet. So this is one dependency that I've added here. Another one is actuator, which is a dependency which helps you to expose the metrics for your application, and we'll see more about how it works in some time. Uh, as soon as this is done, let's quickly generate a project, and as you can see, it has created a zip file. Now this is something that we can extract into a local file system and have it open on our IDE. Now, once you open it on the IDE, this is something that it will look like. Now, as you can see, the structure is very basic. It just contains a single class, which has a single method called the main method, which is kind of obvious because any execution of Java starts with the main method. So this is where the execution would start in this case as well. Uh, Also, if you scroll down, you would find something called pom.xml, and this is because we generated our project as a Maven project. And as you can see, it has added two dependencies. One is the actuator and one is web, and these are pretty much the same dependencies that we have added on the initializer. Now, under resources, if you go down, you would find something called application.properties. This is where we specify the application configuration. So things like database URL, database configurations, what else? HTTP configurations, right? Any sort of configuration that you need in your application that could be specified from here. And now, since we are building APIs over HTTP, since we are building REST APIs, let's quickly create another class. And for that, we first have to create a new package. So let's create a new package called controllers, and must be created inside this package. And here, and here, we have to create a new class, and let's name this class as Spring Boot Demo Controller. Once this is done, the Spring Boot works largely on pieces of annotations. So we have to mark this class as if it's a controller. Yes. And this is how you do that, right? So if you go inside just controller, you will see that let's accept. Yeah, it's basically a combination of controller and response body. And response body is what enables us to return the payload to back to the requester of the APIs. So once we have marked it as REST controller, the next thing that we need to do is specify a constructor. In this case, we don't have the constructors are where you would expect to specify the dependencies information. So if my controller depends on, let's say, database, the database dependency or database, the class that manages the database has to be injected to this constructor. But in this case, since we don't have any, let's just create a blank one. And with Spring Boot, there are ways of auto-wiring a constructor. So let's add that as well for now. We don't have any dependency, of course, at this point, but once you add this, those could be auto injected into this constructor, into this class, into this object. Now let's create a method and let's name it public response entity, and let's return something called employee, and we'll create this class called employee. uh, let's name this method as get employee by id, and let's map this to a route, to a url, which we can specify using path, and here we can say employees slash, and then I want to take the id as a parameter, right? And of course we need to specify that it will produce a JSON, so we want to expose this as JSON, and in the method argument we also have to specify that this is a path parameter, and here the name would be id. I mean, it's, you could simply specify something like this, and you could say string id. And now this is how you can inject the ID into your method. So you can take the ID from the requested and get access to that ID here. And this is where you could process your ID. So in this case, let's create another package and name it, let's say DTOs. And inside DTOs, let's add another class called employee. And let's add some attributes for this employee. So first of all, the employee will have a string ID. Employee will have a first name. Employee will also have a last name. Maybe we can store the department, and maybe the designation. Right. Now we'll keep enhancing this model as we go on, but for now let's just stick with these 5 attributes. Now as you can see, it is highlighting employee for me, and all I need to do is I need to just import this, and I can do that by specifying it here. Let's do that. Employee. Yeah, perfect. So so what have we done so far? So far we have a controller class which has a constructor which is auto-wide, and we have a method which returns an employee based on the ID. Now at this point I don't have my database now, so I don't want to query it right now, but what we can do is maybe we can return a dummy employee. Let's say, let's create an object of employee first. Let's new employee, and maybe we can do before that we have defined these attributes, but as you can see, by default these are private attributes. So in order to expose them, we will add another annotation which is called setters and getter. So these annotations come from something called lombok, and it basically creates the setters and getter method for all these attributes, and you don't have to create those manually. And so now if you go here, you should be able to see the methods here. So I can set id as id, and I can set the first name as hello. I can also set, sorry, I can set the first name as hello. I can set the last name as world, as just like any other first program that you write. And then finally let's also set the designation. Maybe this person is accountant. And then what we need to do is we just need to return response entity dot okay. That signifies that this request is successful, and then we bind employee into this application, and if I click on run, let's see what the output is. Sorry, some typos. So as you can see, the it has started this application, Spring Boot demo application, and it has exposed one endpoint for actuator. And let's see if our employee endpoint has also been exposed. And since this is a GET endpoint, we can simply go to our browser and try hitting that endpoint. So it's simply localhost 8080 slash employees slash ID. This employee slash ID is what determines that it has to go to this particular controller and into this particular method. And once we do that, we got the output. And this is very much similar to what we did. We didn't set the department, so that is null. And other than that, all the parameters that we had set on the back end are all coming to the front end. So it is returning the response back to the client. So this is how we can create a very basic REST API. Of course, this is just a GET endpoint. We could similarly have mappings for post, put, delete, all of that. And we are going to be doing that in the next sessions. But browser and you can see we got the exact same output. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching this video. Do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the future sessions. Thank you.